Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today we're going to be tackling a really complex topic.
Hopefully complex.
The identity of the Sahrawi people and what it means.
Right, and the implications for that whole Western Sahara conflict.
Exactly. To help us unpack all of this,
Okay.
we've got excerpts from an interview with two experts.
Cool.
Dr. Manar al-Salami and Dr. Naum Abdel Fattah.
Okay, I'm familiar with them.
And they're discussing the makeup of the population
Okay.
in those Tindouf refugee camps.
Oh yeah, that's a key element in this whole dispute.
Yeah, right at the heart of it.
For sure.
So one of the things that Dr. al-Salami asserts is that most of the people living in the Tindouf camps
most of them
are not originally from Western Sahara.
That's interesting.
Yeah, she points to
Who are they?
specific tribes like the Rekebates,
Okay.
the Ouled Tidjirine, Sabah, Ouled Dalim, and Ouled Abeid.
I see.
And she says that historically these groups resided in Algeria and Mauritania. Oh, wow. So they're not even...
Not even from Western Sahara.
So how do they end up in these camps?
That is the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if what she's saying is true,
Okay.
then it raises some serious questions about who the Polisario Front actually represents.
Yeah, the Polisario.
Can you give us a little bit of background?
Yeah, so the Polisario Front,
On them.
they emerged back in the 70s
Okay.
with this goal of you know, liberating Western Sahara from the Spanish.
From colonial rule.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And when Spain withdrew, Morocco said, hey, this is ours.
Right.
And that kind of sparked the conflict with the Polisario Front, who were like, no, we want independence.
Who wanted their own state.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And so they set up these camps.
In Algeria.
Yeah, to house all the Sahrawi refugees that were fleeing the fighting.
Okay.
So it gets complicated.
It does.
Yeah.
Dr. Al-Salami is suggesting that by including these non-Sahrawi tribes,
Okay.
the Polisario is trying to kind of,
Pump up the numbers.
inflate the number of people that they claim to represent.
Yeah, I see.
It's like she's
Like
saying
complicating
that they're trying to manufacture a parallel history.
to make their claims stronger.
Yeah, bolster their political goals.
Interesting.
That's a big accusation.
It is. It really makes you wonder about how identity can be used for political purposes.
Right. And so Dr. Abdel Fattah, what does he say?
Well, he chimes in and he points out how the words Sahrawi and Bedouin often get used interchangeably, which is a problem.
Okay, so you're saying it's not as simple as just saying
Not at all.
anyone living in the Sahara Desert is automatically Sahrawi.
No, it's much more nuanced than that.
Okay.
Like the Sahrawi people, they have their own distinct cultural heritage
Okay.
and history.
Yeah.
And it's within that larger Bedouin context.
That's a subset.
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay.
So it's not a homogenous thing. It's more complicated.
Okay.
And by mixing these terms up, it makes it really hard to figure out who's who.
Yeah, who's representing who?
Exactly. It muddies the waters.
Yeah, for sure.
And then it makes you question, if a lot of these people in the camps aren't actually Sahrawi,
right?
does the Polisario even have the right to speak for all Sahrawis?
That's a good question.
It is. It is.
Okay, so before we get too deep into the political side of things,
Okay.
let's talk about the tribes themselves.
All right.
These groups that Dr. Al-Salami mentioned,
Like who?
the Rekebates, the Ouled Tidjirine.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit more about them?
So these tribes, they've been nomadic for a long time,
Okay.
like centuries,
Wow.
moving around the Sahara, Algeria, Mauritania, even Western Sahara.
So their movements weren't necessarily tied to
No, not really.
like a specific piece of land?
No, they followed the resources,
What do you mean?
grazing land, water sources, wherever they could find what they needed to survive.
Makes sense.
They were adaptable.
So trying to definitively link them to one specific national or ethnic group is
A bit tricky.
complicated.
Very complicated.
And is that what Dr. Al-Salami is getting at?
Yeah, she's saying that the Polisario is taking advantage of this
Of this kind of ambiguity to create a narrative
that fits their goals.
to suit their political agenda.
Yeah, basically.
So they're using the presence of these nomadic tribes to try to bolster their claims?
To say, look how many Sahrawi people we represent.
Wow.
Even if it's not entirely accurate.
That's a pretty bold accusation.
It is, but it's what makes this whole deep dive so interesting.
It's like a puzzle.
Right. We're peeling back the layers.
Exactly.
Trying to understand the historical and cultural intricacies.
Of this conflict.
That's not just about land.
It's about people.
Exactly.
And their story.
And their identities.
Okay, so I'm hooked. But before we jump to any conclusions,
Of course.
why should our listener care about all of this?
That's a great question.
What makes these details of identity so important?
Well, think of it like this.
Okay.
When we understand these complexities,
Yeah.
we can see past the political rhetoric.
Oh, I see.
We can start to assess.
The truth.
Yeah, are these claims valid? Are they not?
Right.
It's about understanding motivations,
Okay.
separating fact from fiction.
So it's not just about choosing a side.
No, not at all.
It's about being informed.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about becoming engaged citizens
Who can understand the world.
who can think critically about these global issues.
All right, I'm on board with that.
Good.
Now,
Let's see.
where do we go from here?
What do we do with all this information?
What solutions are our experts proposing?
Well, they both say
Okay.
we need to acknowledge the historical facts.
Okay, and what are those facts according to them?
In their view, Western Sahara is part of Morocco.
Okay, now hold on a second. I just want to make sure our listeners know
Okay, good point.
that this is the expert's perspective.
Not necessarily ours.
Right.
Yeah. We're just laying out the information,
Okay, good.
letting people make up their own minds.
So they're saying acknowledge historical facts
Uh-huh.
and recognize Western Sahara as part of Morocco.
Right.
What else?
They also say we need more effort
From who?
from Arab and African nations
Okay.
to highlight what they see as the truth,
Which means?
which means supporting Morocco's claim.
Got it.
They think that would bring stability.
To the region.
Exactly.
But wouldn't that be seen as taking sides?
That's a good point.
In a conflict where a lot of people feel like the Sahrawi people
Right.
haven't been given the right to decide their own future.
Yeah, some people would definitely see it that way.
It's a tricky situation.
It is.
So we're back to this question of representation.
Yeah. Who gets to speak for the Sahrawi people?
If we accept what these two experts are saying,
Okay.
are we silencing the people who support the Polisario?
The ones who want an independent Western Sahara.
Yeah.
That's a valid concern.
And it kind of highlights, the ethical dilemma of this whole thing.
Exactly.
You know, how do we balance
The rights of one group.
with the claims of another,
It's tough.
and who gets to decide what the solution should be?
Right. It's complicated.
I think this conversation is really emphasizing how important it is.
To understand the history.
Yes.
The context.
The historical context.
Yeah, of the whole Western Sahara conflict.
Can you give us a brief...
A rundown.
Yeah, a rundown of what led to this situation.
Sure.
Okay.
So Western Sahara was under Spanish control
Right, we talked about that.
right up until the mid-70s.
Okay.
And as Spain was getting ready to leave,
Yeah,
Morocco and Mauritania both said, hey,
it's ours.
we want it.
Okay.
That's when the Polisario Front emerged.
To fight for an independent Sahrawi state?
Exactly.
And what happened after Spain left?
Well, Mauritania backed off eventually,
Okay.
but Morocco moved in.
And annexed a big chunk of the territory.
Yep.
And the fighting escalated
Big time.
into a full-blown war.
A full-blown war.
And that's what led to the Tindouf camps, where all these Sahrawis fled.
To escape the violence.
And they've been there for decades.
Decades.
So these tribes in the camps are just one small piece
Of a much bigger puzzle.
a historical puzzle.
Absolutely.
And it's all tied up with
the politics of the region.
the politics.
It's a mess.
It is a mess.
Yeah.
This deep dive has really shown me
Yeah.
how many layers there are to this conflict.
It's not just about land.
It's not black and white.
No, it's very gray.
It's about identity,
History.
representation,
Self-determination.
the right to self-determination.
It's about people.
So as informed citizens,
Yeah.
we have a responsibility
To engage with this.
to understand it.
To understand all these
Yeah.
complexities.
All right, okay.
So we've talked about the claims.
All arguments.
Hammer argument.
History.
It's a lot to take in.
It is.
Yeah.
What does this mean for the future?
The future of Western Sahara.
The Sahrawi people.
That's the big question.
I'm sure experts have some thoughts
Well,
about
we're-
how to move forward.
What's the solution?
What's the best way to address this conflict
Okay.
and this issue of Sahrawi identity?
They think the international community should back Morocco's autonomy plan.
Can you remind me?
Yeah. So
Not that it...
basically it gives Western Sahara some self-governance,
Okay.
but
Still under Morocco.
under Moroccan control.
So not full independence.
Not full independence.
Just a limited form of autonomy?
Right.
But I'm guessing
Yeah.
the Polisario probably...
No, they hate that.
They don't like that.
No, they want full independence.
So we're stuck
It seems that way.
with these two sides that have totally different visions
Two different futures.
for the future of Western Sahara.
Yeah, it's hard to see how they'll find common ground.
This whole conversation really makes you think.
It does.
About the power of identity.
How it get to be used.
In these political conflicts.
For good or for bad.
It's a powerful force.
Yeah, it really is.
And I think we need to understand it better.
If we want to solve these conflicts.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
okay,
what's the one thing,
the key takeaway,
that you want our listeners to remember?
I'd say remember this, Western Sahara.
Yeah.
It's not a simple problem.
With easy solutions.
No. There's so many layers to this.
Historical.
All intertwined.
We have to consider all of them.
We can't just focus on one.
It's about understanding those complexities.
And the different perspectives.
And remembering.
That at the heart of this are human beings.
With their own stories.
Their own hopes and fears.
And we need to engage with that.
With empathy.
To try to understand.
And listen to each other.
Because that's the only way we can find a just and peaceful solution.
A solution that works for everyone.
Well said.
Thanks.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, but we're not done yet.
Oh, no.
There's still so much more to explore.
We've only just begun.
So join us for the next part
of our deep dive,
where we'll continue to unravel
the complexities
of the Western Sahara conflict.
They're there.
Okay, so we've heard one side of the story.
From our experts.
But as you mentioned, there are always other perspectives.
Always.
So what are some of the counter-arguments to what we just heard?
Well, some people say that this whole focus on where these tribes are from.
Right, their origins?
Yeah, it kind of misses the point.
How so?
Like it oversimplifies the whole idea of Sahrawi identity.
Yeah,
because it's not just about where your ancestors lived.
It's more than that.
Yeah, it's about a shared history.
Okay.
A shared culture, a struggle.
The struggle for self-determination.
Exactly, and that binds people together.
Regardless of their specific tribal background.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's less about where you're from.
Right.
And more about this shared experience of being Sahrawi.
And fighting for an independent Western Sahara.
So the Polisario, despite maybe some of its
shortcomings,
still represents
the hopes,
the aspirations,
not the dreams
of a lot of Sahrawis.
Many Sahrawis.
Who have been through so much.
Decades of hardship.
Displacement.
Yeah, it's been a long struggle.
And going back to the tribes.
Yeah.
You were talking about their history.
Their nomadic lifestyle.
Yeah. Doesn't that...
Makes it even harder.
Yeah.
To define...
Who's a true Sahrawi?
Exactly.
I mean, if they've always been moving around.
Across these modern borders.
Yeah.
Doesn't that actually strengthen the argument?
For a shared identity?
Potentially, yeah.
It could be seen that way.
Yeah, the critics of Dr. Al-Salami,
okay,
they say she's ignoring that fluidity.
That interconnectedness.
Yeah, like she's trying to impose...
modern boundaries.
The fixed boundaries.
Yeah.
On a population that's never really followed them.
So are we potentially...
By focusing on these tribes, are we overlooking the bigger picture?
The broader historical context.
That maybe even playing into the hands of those who want to divide the Sahrawi people?
It's a difficult question.
It is.
It's complicated.
And that's why it's so important to look at all sides.
To explore these different perspectives.
So we can think critically.
About the narratives.
The stories we're being told.
And question our assumptions.
Yeah, about identity, about belonging.
Okay.
It's not easy.
No, it's not.
But it's necessary.
Okay, so let's go back to Dr. Al-Salami and Dr. Abdel Fattah. You mentioned.
They're calling for...
Yeah, they want more.
More effort from Arab and African nations.
To support Morocco's claim.
Right.
What does that look like in practice?
Well, they think these nations should formally recognize...
Recognize Morocco's sovereignty?
Yeah, over Western Sahara.
Okay.
And basically tell the Polisario...
To give up.
Yeah, to drop their claims for independence.
So in their view, that would stabilize things.
Prevent future conflict.
Exactly.
But wouldn't that be seen as...
As siding with Morocco?
Yeah.
Of course.
Ignoring the Sahrawi people's desire for self-determination.
Critics would say that it's a denial of their rights.
That it's unjust.
Yeah.
So again...
Back to the question.
Who gets to represent...
The Sahrawi people.
If we follow our experts' argument...
Okay.
Are we silencing the voices?
Of those who support the Polisario.
The ones who want an independent Western Sahara.
It's a tough question.
It's an ethical dilemma.
Yeah, how do you balance...
the rights of one group...
against the claims of another?
And who decides...
Who has the authority?
Yeah, who gets to say?
What's fair?
What's the solution?
It's so complicated.
It really is.
I think it all comes back to understanding...
To history.
Yeah.
The backstory...
The historical conflict.
Of the whole Western Sahara conflict.
Can we do a quick recap?
Of the key events.
Yeah, just to make sure.
To get everyone up to speed.
Everyone's on the same page.
All right, so
let's go back to the beginning.
Western Sahara.
Spanish colonial rule.
Until the mid-70s.
Right.
Then Spain says,
we're out of here.
We're leaving.
And both Morocco and Mauritania.
Jump in.
They say,
the powers.
We want it. Okay.
Polisario emerges.
To fight for independence.
For a Sahrawi state.
Okay.
Spain leaves. Mauritania eventually gives up its claim.
But Morocco
doesn't.
They move in and annex a large part
of Western Sahara.
And that's when the war really starts.
Full-blown war.
Leading to the Tindouf camps.
Yeah, thousands of Sahrawis flee.
To escape the fighting.
And they've been there ever since.
A symbol of their struggle.
For self-determination.
So these tribes in the camps.
Yeah.
Just one piece.
Of a much larger puzzle.
A historical puzzle.
Entangled with
political realities.
That's a mess. It really is. This deep dive has really
opened your eyes.
Yeah.
To the complexities.
To how many layers there are to this conflict.
It's more than just a territorial dispute.
It's about identity.
Representation.
Suri.
The right to self-determination.
It's about people.
Real people.
And their stories.
Their lives.
And as informed citizens.
Yeah.
We have to engage with all of it.
Oh, I can't turn away.
We can't oversimplify it.
No.
We have to understand
the nuances.
The different perspectives.
So we can make informed judgments.
All right.
So where do we go from here?
What's next?
What does the future hold for Western Sahara?
What about the Sahrawi people?
Can they achieve their goals?
Is there a path to peace and justice?
Big questions.
I'm sure our experts have some ideas.
They do.
About how to move forward.
Potential solutions.
Yeah. What did they see as the best way
to address this conflict?
To resolve this issue of Sahrawi identity?
Well, they're big proponents of...
Of what?
Of Morocco's autonomy plan.
Can you remind us what that is?
So basically it's a way for Western Sahara to have some control over their own affairs.
Okay.
But still be under Moroccan rule.
So not full independence.
No.
More like
a limited form of self-government.
Within Morocco.
Exactly.
Okay. But I'm guessing
Polisario.
They're not going to be happy with that.
Oh, they hate that idea.
They see it as
a way for Morocco to maintain control.
While denying them their right to independence.
Yeah, they want nothing to do with it.
So we're back to square one.
It seems like it.
At two sides.
With totally different visions.
For the future of Western Sahara.
It's hard to imagine them finding common ground.
This whole discussion has really highlighted for me
the power of identity.
Yeah. How it can be used.
In these political struggles.
Sometimes to divide people.
Sometimes to unite them.
It's a double-edged sword.
For sure.
And we need to be aware of that.
As we try to understand these conflicts.
So as we move towards the final part
of our deep dive,
what's the key takeaway?
What should our listeners be thinking about?
As they continue to explore this complex issue.
I would say.
Yeah.
Remember that the Western Sahara conflict, it's not a simple issue.
No.
There are no easy solutions.
We can't just say,
this side is right.
Or that side is wrong.
It's much more nuanced than that.
It's multifaceted.
With historical, political, cultural dimensions.
And we have to consider all of them.
We can't just cherry pick the ones that fit our narrative.
It's about understanding the complexities.
The different perspective.
And recognizing the human stories.
At the heart of this conflict.
We can't forget about the people.
No, their lives are at stake.
And their identities.
Their hopes.
Their dreams.
Their fears.
We have to engage with all of it.
With empathy.
With a genuine desire to understand.
To listen.
Because only then can we hope to contribute.
To a more just...
and peaceful resolution.
The resolution that benefits everyone.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground.
A lot of ground.
But the journey's not over.
Oh, no.
We're about to embark on the final leg.
The final part.
Of our deep dive.
Where we'll explore.
The potential pathways forward.
The search for solutions.
So buckle up.
And get ready.
Because it's about to get even deeper.
We're diving in.
Feels like we could talk about this forever.
I know, right?
So much to unpack.
It's fascinating.
But as we start to wrap things up, I want to go back to something you said earlier.
About identity.
Yeah, about how it's fluid and contested.
It's so important.
Especially in this conflict.
Absolutely.
Can you talk a bit more about that?
Sure.
Why is it so important to understand?
Well, because it challenges us.
Okay.
To move beyond.
Yeah.
These simplistic ideas.
Of like who belongs where.
Exactly.
Okay.
We have to recognize the complexities.
Of history and culture.
And lived experiences.
So it's not just about saying.
This person is Sahrawi.
Or this person isn't.
Right.
It's more nuanced than that.
Much more.
Okay.
Identity is shaped by so many things.
So many factors.
Yeah.
And for The Sahrawi people, what are some of those factors?
Well, you have this shared experience of displacement,
Right.
the struggle for self-determination, and a cultural heritage
That goes beyond.
that transcends those tribal boundaries.
So it's about the nuances.
Yeah.
Not trying to categorize people.
No boxes.
No.
Boxes.
We need to recognize that identity can evolve.
It changes over time.
Exactly, as individuals and communities interact.
Right.
With different cultures, different political realities.
So someone who maybe didn't see themselves as Sahrawi?
Years ago.
Yeah.
Might feel very differently today.
Because of the conflict.
Because of the movement for self-determination.
Right.
It shows how identity is both personal and collective.
Okay, I see.
Influenced by individual choices, but also by these bigger social and political forces.
It makes me think about...
About what?
How identity can be manipulated.
Oh, absolutely.
For political gain.
We see it all the time.
And in Western Sahara.
Yeah.
Both sides.
Both Morocco and the Polisario have been accused of using identity
as a weapon
to advance their own agendas.
Yeah. It's a dangerous game.
It really is.
It undermines
the search for peace.
The search for a just solution.
So as we wrap up,
yeah,
what advice would you give our listeners
for navigating this complex issue
of identity and politics?
I'd say be curious.
Okay.
Ask questions.
Don't just take things at face value.
Do your research.
Talk to people.
Talk to people with different perspectives.
From different backgrounds.
Challenge your assumptions.
Be open to new information.
Because at the end of the day, this is about human beings.
With their own stories, fears.
Exactly.
So we have to approach this.
With empathy.
With a genuine desire to understand.
To listen.
To listen to each other.
To find common ground.
It's not about taking sides.
No, it's about seeking truth and justice.
For everyone.
For all involved.
Well said.
Thank you.
I think that's a powerful message.
It's a message of hope.
Even in the face of these really difficult conflicts, there's always hope.
If we can find a way
to connect,
to understand each other,
to build bridges,
and to work together
towards a better future.
A future where everyone's rights are respected.
And everyone's voice is heard.
That's the goal.
That's what we're striving for.
Absolutely.
We hope this deep dive has given you a new perspective.
A new way of looking at this conflict.
The Western Sahara conflict?
It's a complicated issue.
But it's an important one.
And it deserves our attention.
So keep exploring.
Keep questioning.
And keep diving deep.
Until next time.
Stay curious.